Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre, and in this video, I am going to share with you how to make this Cinderella bar necklace. So, I'm going to share with you the supply list, and see if we can get a screenshot of it. There we go. Okay, so for supplies, you're going to need a 16 to 18 inch, which is 40 to 45 centimeters length of 16 gauge square dead soft wire. I wrote dead soft square wire, which is 16 gauge is 1.29 millimeters. I had said it was 0.51 because that's what my scroll or my roll said, but that's can't be millimeters. I'm thinking that that's, I don't know what that is. Anyways, that's not accurate. So it is 1.29 millimeters. And I'm using raw copper. And I use 2 pieces of 6-inch, which is 15 centimeters, of 20 gauge, which is 0.81 millimeters, dead soft wire. And I am using copper. I write that in there now because I often, very often people were asking me, what type of wire are you using? And I'm just using raw copper. So, also 5 pieces of 6 inches, 5 6-inch pieces, which is 15 centimeters of 24 or 26 gauge wire. Now, at the beginning, I used 24, and then I just found it so much easier to use the 26. So if you want, you can just skip right on to the 26, even though I say 24. And which is 0.51 to or 0.455 millimeters. Dead soft wire, and I'm using raw copper. Now you're going to need a chain and clasp to make your necklace the preferred length, and I explain that how much you need later because everybody's is going to be different. Your accent beads of choice. Now I'm using 1 10 millimeter coin freshwater pearl and 4 2.5 by 4 millimeter potato freshwater pearls. Okay, and for tools, I got a big list here. This is what I used. You might be able to use other things. So I used my chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, my flush cutters, my bail making pliers, a ruler, an anvil, my rawhide hammer, fumes of ammonia to oxidize the copper, and a nail buff to buff the oxidization. And I bought these nail buffs, in case anybody's wondering, on Amazon. All you need to do is just write in this name, type in this name in the search on Amazon, and I'm sure it'll pop up. If not, something, and add the word buff to it as a nail buff. And I'm thinking that you'll find something. They're really, it was a package of 12, I think. I can't remember. I bought them over a year ago. So anyways, that's what I've used for buffing. And of course, you could use your steel wool or whatever you prefer. But I just find I can do that right on the video. And I can take it with me wherever I go. It's just handier, and it makes less mess too. So there you go. And let's see. I'd like to ask everybody watching this video to like it if you liked it, and please write a comment. Give me some feedback. Please keep things positive, and excuse me. Please consider joining my memberships. I recommend my retired video memberships. That way you get to see, once they're 2 years old and I put them into the retirement area, then you still get to access them all the time. And it just helps my channel thrive and grow. And it's slow going, but I'm trying to keep it afloat. Okay, and I'm also trying to do a lot of videos in advance right now because we're packing up and moving, and I have to hurry up and try and get some tutorials done so I can pack up my craft room. And hopefully I'll have it unpacked in a timely manner as well to continue. So if there's a space in between, please support me and keep watching my other videos. I appreciate that so much. You guys mean a lot to me, and I couldn't do this without you. Thank you all. And we'll go on with the tutorial. Okay, so I want you to take your 16-inch piece of square wire. That's 16 gauge square wire, and we need to straighten it because when it comes off the roll, it's pretty wonky. So what I'm doing is I'm taking, it's too hard to do it with the bare fingers, so I'm going to hold one end with my pliers, and I'm going to take a microfiber cloth and try and straighten it about 3 times. It's hard to do this on camera. 3 times, and I'm giving it a bend as I go because that's what does it. And if it twists, that's okay. It's going to make it actually work better. And then I'm going to go from the other direction as well in case there's unwanted bends there. And just do it as best you can. The most important area is the center where we're going to make the hearts. The rest will probably work out. Now we are going to measure the center. That's where we're going to start the heart. And so it's 16 inches, which is 40 centimeters. And we're going to measure 8 inches, which is 20 centimeters. It's a nice even number, isn't it? Okay, it's kind of curved here, so just do the best you can. Doesn't have to be exact. Okay, that's where I want it. I'm not using my fingernail to bend it because my fingernail will break. Okay, and that's where I'm going to make the center of the heart. We're gonna bend it together as best we can because it takes a little bit of muscle. And I'm just doing it a little bit at a time, one squeeze at a time. And it does hurt my wrist. And that's about as good as I'm gonna get. You might be stronger than me. Okay, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to take my pliers, my bail making pliers, and what I've done ahead of time is taken a scrap of the wire, and it doesn't have to be your square wire, it could be any wire, just to get the size, because you want to find the size where your pearl, or whichever bead you choose to make, will fit in there quite comfortably. You want it a little bit loose so you can get some wire wrapping in there. And my pearl isn't exactly round. I was actually thinking of taking a file and filing that down. I might end up stopping to do that if it gives me too much grief, but we'll try it as is right now. And so I've got the BB Craft bail making pliers, and what size fit it the best was the smallest side and the largest size. And what I could do is I could measure that in millimeters right now for you, what the inside of that circle is. And it's about 10 millimeters, so even a smidge bigger would be okay, because the pearl is a tiny bit tight. And, you know, all that takes to with your heart is just to stretch it open a tiny bit in the heart, and the pearl will fit. So the size is closest. So now I'm going to take my chain nose pliers to hold this, and I'm going to bend. And remember, it's not important to keep the square part flat, because the more it twirls on you, the prettier it's going to be. But right now, all I'm trying to do is just make the heart starting point. It's pretty symmetrical. So it's not quite symmetrical. This needs more of a bend. But it's not perfect. So we just do the best we can do, because this is handmade and it's wire, and wire has a mind of its own, and it's definitely having a mind of its own today. So now I need to just use the appropriate size of my bail, making pliers that is, and bend it around. And I might stretch it down yet, depending how the heart looks. And we have to balance it out. See if one side's higher than the other. It's a little bit wonky there, so I'm going to just try and see if I can, whoops, side. Just there. I just rolled it in a little bit and it helped fix that. But now this is definitely lower, so I'm going to do the similar effect on the other side till we're happy with the shape. Okay. Now it doesn't matter which wire's flipping over top of the other. Honestly, it doesn't matter at all. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to try, and the heart will change in the process, but we're just going to try and get an approximate heart. And ours will all be different. So I'm hoping 16 inches is long enough. At the end, I might say, do it 18 inches. Give yourself a little bit of freedom there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this heart out a little bit. I'm taking my Anvil and my Rawhide mallet. Now, if you don't have an Anvil or a Rawhide mallet, let's see, what could you use? Something firm underneath, but something that won't break. So you don't want like a ceramic tile. But you could use 2 pieces of wood and have it rest on a piece of wood and have it just ham it, or a piece of, yeah, 2 pieces of wood, and then just tap it. Doesn't have to be hard. We might have to do this a few times throughout the necklace. Okay, and at this point, depending on how tight your heart is, because we're doing a loop over here, you can put your bead on now if you think it's going to be easier for you, or you can put your bead on after all the wire work is done, because if you're not happy with the wire work, you might not want that bead in there. So I'm going to do mine later. And I'm going to make the loops that go over top of the bottom of the wire here. And it kind of makes a bow kind of effect. So I'm just, I don't know if you can see, I'm holding my finger there to help support the wire to make the loop. Okay. Okay, so it's down like that. And then we want, so I'm pushing it with my thumb there. Similar size on the other side. Similar shape. Like that. And I really recommend doing this with copper because this is such thick wire. Sterling silver would be very expensive to do. Although you could do silver plate. There's lots of wire out there in silver plate in square. Okay, artistic wire being one of them. I'm not in Canada, getting para-wire isn't that easy, but I'm sure there's other, I'm just taking a drink here, other companies that make it. For those of you in the States that know where to get the wire and you know, put a link in a comment of where you can get either plated wire or this is Rio Grande. Here, I'll show. I got it off this spool right here, and some say Rio Grande, some say Rio Grande. Okay, so you're at that point and you need to be happy with the shape of it. It's not perfect, but we're being artistic. Now, I'm wanting to make it go up because the next loop is going down. And we want enough space because we're making the loop and then we're going around it again. So you want a little bit of space before you make the loop. And I'm going to bend this one up because we want it to have kind of like the same starting point. So we want it to be very similar in shape, and that isn't always easy to do. So I can't seem to get this one as tight, so I'm loosening this one, bending it back up. I changed it a little bit here, and just trying to be as symmetrical as possible. Not always perfect, not always possible. There, still not perfect, but I have to be happy with that. I don't think I'm going to get any better. Okay, so I want this other loop, and it's going to be a little bit smaller. Now, I never thought of it. I'm putting a pearl in there too. Do I want to do that with the pliers, or do I want to do it freehand? I'm thinking freehand. The pearl doesn't have to fit exactly. You may not even want to put a pearl in it. So I've got that bend. I'm going to try and make a similar bend on this side. Is it similar? It's so hard to tell, isn't it? Okay, we're going to go with that. Okay. Supporting this wire and this wire with my fingers because we don't want to ruin the shape we already had. See, it's plenty big, and that pearl, that's a potato pearl. We can make it, because it's a teardrop shape, we can make it go in there long ways with a teardrop. See, isn't that nice? It's a little bit big, but it's still going to look very pretty. So yes, the pearl is going in. Okay, now I'm going to try and make a similar shape on this side. Oh, that didn't turn out too bad. That was rather easy. Okay, yours might not go as smoothly as mine, so you might have to push one out with tension, tug one very gently with tension until you're happy. And like I said, it could take more than once of doing this. This is actually my second one because the first time I didn't have enough wire. So I wonder, do I have that handy here for you to see? Oh, here it is. So I made that. And I realized soon enough that I did not have enough wire to finish it. It takes way more wire than you think it's going to be. But that's how I do my measurements for you. Usually is trial and error until I get the right amount. Okay. There. I'm happy with that. So now I want to go around this, and we want it larger. Doesn't have to be a lot larger, but we want to mirror the shape at least. Okay, so like that. And we're going like that. That's what we want there. Okay, and now we're trying to do the same thing on the other side. And I'm holding it upside down. So we've got to try and get the same distances around approximately, so it has the same look. Whoops, it started getting too close. Let's back off, get some tension in there. And see the wires at an angle? I don't know if you can see that. That's what I want. That's what I want. You know, this would be really interesting if we twisted the wire ahead of time too. Okay, now it looks almost too big. So I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. Is that similar? It's maybe a smidge bigger. There. Okay, I think they're similar now. Okay, so then the next thing is we're making the end for the chain to go on. So, and we want it to be about here. So I'm going to bend it there. And then I'm going to do the same. Now this one's got a wonky feel to it, so I'm just going to, I call it teasing. Tease it to bend nicely. I don't know if it's because it warms it up or it puts pressure differently, but I rub it and bend it gently. And now it's rounded there, and this one isn't, so I think it might be easier if I try to round this one. Very similar now. Think of yourself as an artist. Put that artist frame of mind in there for you. Okay, so because we're doing opposite swirls, we want to make this one go upwards. So I think we are going to take our chain nose pliers. I mean our bail nose. You could use your chain nose or your bail making pliers at this point, because you really don't want that last loop too big. So let's say the biggest, it's a personal preference how big you want it. So, and if I'm not happy with the height of it, that can be adjusted too. So I'm just going to make a loop. I'm in the middle of my round nose pliers. So 16 inches is a good length. It's working out for me, but it's really short here. You could go 17 or 18 inches if you want to give yourself that little bit extra. So when I do the printout for the screenshot, which hasn't been done yet, I am going to write 16 to 18 inches. Because if you're using sterling silver, which at this size is pricey, you want to minimize. Oh, before I snip, I want to do the same on the other side. Okay. And may not be the right position, and I'm not stressed out about it because I can roll it in with the pliers. And I did it on purpose to be out further, just so you can see what I mean. I'm just going to roll it in until it is the right distance. It needs to be rolled in a little bit more because you snip off the excess. Now, this one ends up with more curve. Let's see if this can go down. Okay, this needs to be rolled up even more. I ended up having more wire on this side than this side. Okay, and now let's bend this down. When your eyes say it's even, this one's lower. Okay. And this one's on top and this one's on the bottom. I wish that one was on the bottom, but that's okay. I'm going to snip it off at this point. If we need adjustment, then we just pick the shortest one to match to. And how does that look? I cut it off a little short there. I will bend that in and we will adjust accordingly to that. Whoops. Oh, it was big anyway, so that's not going to have an impact, I don't think. Okay. How does that look? This one almost seems a little bit long. So I'm going to snip off a little bit of this and roll that in. And we might end up going back and forth, but I think we got it there. Okay, there's the shape. And now I am going to work harden it and flatten it a little bit. You don't want to use metal on it on the top because it'll mar. Although, if you don't have 16 gauge square wire and you don't want to buy 16 gauge square wire, just so you know, Rio Grande, this is the 1 pound roll, but you can get a 4 ounce roll too. Oh, maybe you can't with the square. I'm not sure on that, but if you went there, you could be able to check it out. Now remember, this isn't squishing the metal against each other. It's not hard enough to do it because this is made out of rawhide leather, just like a dog bone. And it just gives. And a piece of wood would do the same thing, like pine wood. Although a rawhide mallet is a good investment. Here. You know what it kind of reminds me of? It's kind of funny for me to think this. This heart was a little bit bigger. It would kind of remind me of Cinderella's carriage. Kind of looks like pumpkins. I don't know. It doesn't. I know it doesn't, but that's just where my head went. Okay. So that looks pretty good. The circles opened up a little bit more there. I'm just going to tighten them. It's still bouncy, but it's pretty sturdy. If you felt it wasn't sturdy enough, give it some more hammering. But I honestly think it's pretty sturdy. It's going to keep its shape quite nicely. So now it's time to add the beads. So you need to take, now I haven't pre-cut my wire, my 24 gauge wire, but you need about 4 or 5 inches. I wrote 5 inches, and I'm just guesstimating. I'm just going to do 3 of them right while I'm snipping. 1 for each bead. Scraps. If you keep scraps with 24 gauge, I usually don't. I usually just keep the scraps of the bigger wires. Okay, so that's a shorter one. I'll save that for a little pearl. Now I'm going to start at the back because I want start in the middle here. And I wanted the tail to be from the back because I want the wire to end up at the front for the bead to be at the front. Okay, and I'm going to wrap 3 times. I'm going to take my chain nose pliers to grab that. Maybe 5 inches could have been 6 inches to make it easier, but this is workable. Oh, I guess it doesn't really matter where you start and finish because you just have to flip it around. Okay, and that is definitely 3 wraps from the visual in the front. And now I'm just going to make sure they're cinched together nice and good. I'm going to actually crimp it down to give it some stability. Put the bead on. Now, if you have pearls like I do, you might have to go, because this is really tight, you might have to go 26 gauge wire. But I just liked it to be as strong as possible. And because this bead is a little bit not as circular as my other one in my last wire wrapping, it's still sitting, it's still pretty. I'm just going to bring it down a smidge just to give wire wrapping room. And now I'm going to do the 3 wraps. Visually, we want to end, cinch that up. We want to end in the center of the heart because we want it not to poke anybody. And that's where we'll crimp it down. Take your time, make it neat. Okay, so it's visually 3 wraps, and I'm going to bring it up again anyways because I want it in the center of, to finish off in the center of the heart. Okay, and then I'm going to take my snips, my flush cutters, and snip it down. And it's easier to do this if you do this before you do your wire wrapping. But it's still not that hard to do. And the fact it's a little bit on top, the end is a little bit on top, you can see that there, but this makes it, protects it from us touching on anything. So that worked out well. Okay, so this one, I'm going to now bring it up as well. And make sure it's cinched. Snip it. Now I really want that snipped down between the bead and the wire so it doesn't poke anybody. And the bead will flip on you. That's just part of the way this is made. That's why I normally lock my beads in place, because I don't like them flipping. But when it's somebody's wearing it, it's not going to flip really, because it's laying against somebody, right? Okay, there, that's done. And now it's going to be harder to do these ones for sure. And let's just go with the flow. So again, I'm going to start at the back. I don't know why I like starting at the back, but I do. And I'm just going to bend it. And it's kinking up on me. I'll just use that to my advantage and make that the first wrap. Okay, I'm only going to wrap one, just because it's going to be a very similar process on both sides. So there's once. It's very tricky. And it twisted on me. I'm going to untwist that. I'm using the tail to anchor it down, otherwise it'll just keep on flipping on you. Keep cinching it up, tugging it so it looks neat. And this went way over there. And I just might take advantage, snip this off, crimp it in right now. Because I can crimp it into the middle of the loop. It's definitely more tricky than in the heart. Okay, now let's introduce the pearl or bead that you chose. Where's that? Oh. Okay. And that's how it's going to sit. And we'll wrap that going this direction. So it's actually going the opposite. The other side, it just balanced. Pulled it tight. That pearl to move. Okay. We'll do 3 wraps there as well. Oh. Pull it tight. 26 gauge wire is definitely easier to work with for this. Might just choose to do that just for the ease of the wire work. I'm pulling really tight. But we're close to being done. And then I want to finish off in the middle. So this is the back right now, and I'm going up. together and snip. Just gonna fix everything up to look as visually pleasing as possible, as it keeps moving. Okay, and it bent a little bit on me, and because I can't hammer it anymore because of the pearls. Actually, you probably could. I don't think the rawhide would hurt the pearls. If you were, yeah, it should be straight, because I'm not going to hammer hard. Gently tapping it. Or you could even just push too, right? Okay, so I can see it spread apart there. Let's cinch that up. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and do this one and be right back. Okay, so while I was starting my second bead on here, you know how it kinked at the front beginning of the wire wrapping there, and then I had to straighten it with my pliers? It did the exact same thing. So I figured I'd come up with a solution for that, and this is what I'm doing. I'm starting my tail, and I'm taking my chain nose pliers, and I'm giving it a bend, and that way, then you take the long part, this is the back, and you tuck that in, and it's got that already started for you right there. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to do that again because I think I was out of the camera. So I've got this wire, taking the long piece, sticking it through, and then just holding it there, and then it's got the circle started, and you don't have to worry about that kink. And then just pull it tight. I'm using the pliers to pull it tight. My pearl's rolling away. And then I'm going to crimp it together. And that just makes a big difference when you're starting out. Okay, so I'm back, and I'm now just straightening out the wires so they look more pleasing, making sure the end's tucked in where it doesn't poke anybody, and it is. Cinching it up together if it isn't, so it looks neat. And then again, I see that the wires aren't sitting the way I'd like them to be, so I'm just gonna hold the bead and push there, and then it's centered. Okay, so that's a simple fix. I'm going to now take my rawhide mallet and gently tap everything, and it did break my pearl. Okay, so lesson learned. It chipped off some of the nacre. Very minimal. Very minimal. Okay. So, push. Don't hammer. I thought it wouldn't hurt it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I won't do it on this video, but I will take that pearl off and put on a new pearl, because I wouldn't want to sell it with a broken pearl. Okay, so I also decided to bend this down a little bit, because I just thought it looked a little funny. So I just wanted to be more visually pleasing. Okay. There. I think that helps a little bit, you know, down and up. Like that. Okay. Next step. Okay, now I want you to take some little scraps. This is where a little scrap comes in handy. And the more beat up it is, the better, because you want it to be work hardened. You can always work harden it some more, like that. Or you can work harden it afterwards with a hammer and Anvil. That sounded like Advil. And I'm making a infinity link. And I'm using the center of my pliers. Basically, that just makes it easier for me to make matching loops. Make a P-loop. And that P-loop needs to be big enough to go around your 16 gauge wire. Now I've got this scrap of 16 gauge wire, and I'm just double checking, and it's got lots of movement. Okay, so that's good. And now I'm taking my pliers and putting it there. Okay, it's tied up to the other loop, and making a loop in the opposite direction. I'm taking my pliers out, putting it back in so I can have strength of movement, and it looks nice and neat. And I'm going to snip it off at that point. And there, we utilize a little piece of scrap. Now I want you to make 2 of these, but before I go away, I'm just going to work harden it. Take my chain nose pliers, and I'm just pulsating pressure into it instead of hammering if you don't have a hammer. Or you could use previously work hardened wire, which is what I usually do. I just don't do it on my videos because I know you guys don't always have access to it. Okay, so that one's done. Go ahead and make another one. Okay, for your next element, you're going to need, I've got about 5.5 inches here, I think. I'll measure it just in case, and I'm sure it's too much. We'll find out at the end. Oh, it's 5 inches. And I am going to just make the same size loop that I have on that. So that was the center. Whoops, off camera. P-loop. And now we want to make a full-size loop, the biggest loop that your round nose pliers makes. And we want to go halfway around again, like that, because we want to make another loop on the other side. And before we head into that, I want to work harden it. And you could work harden the wire ahead of time too. This would definitely be a bonus to have it work hardened ahead of time. Okay, and now I'm going to make a matching loop on the other side. Just make sure that's far enough. Because I could always make it smaller, but I can't make it longer. So it's better to be too far, because I could always curl it in. Okay. And which is what I got to do now. Oh yeah, this was 5 inches is way too much. You could get away with 3.5 inches to make this. You could use a scrap wire for that too. Okay, so we just want it to be so that it's looking even. I'm going to take my snips and snip it in. You got to make sure you only snip the wire you want, otherwise you have to start all over. Okay, so now I'm going to work harden this loop, pulsating pressure, and gently doing it over the 2 wires because we don't want to damage them or make them flip. So I'm doing gentle taps, really. Okay, and it did move my wire, so now I just have to fix it up by moving it. And you know what? I'm going to put my round nose pliers in there to do that. Just get it even. Okay. Okay, so I decided to use 26 gauge wire to wrap this pearl. Just because it was so difficult with the other one, with the pendant part. So I'm just gonna start wrapping 3 wraps around the double part of this loop. And I had around 7 or 8 inches of it, just for ease of maneuvering. Nice and neat. Okay, I'm going to snip that off in the middle, so we don't have to do it later with the bead in place. I think I need to snip it further down. Okay, now the bead doesn't fit the lengthways of the potato, but it does fit the other way. You might have to experiment with your beads and the size of your loops. You might need to use your veil making pliers to accommodate whatever bead it is you chose. And even if the bead sits above a little bit, it's still elegant, which I might end up doing. The other one fit. This one's more round. So we'll just do the best that we can. It actually looks pretty when it's sitting up anyways. It just makes it harder to do the wiring. But at least I can get at it from the side. There's 2. 3. Snip that down as low as I can. And that's on. So then you need to make 2 of those. Okay. Remember to try and even out your wrapping so it's similar on each side. Crimp it in. And to make it look perfect. Okay, so the next step is to put your infinity links onto the ends. And we also need to make sure that that loop is closed and it's open again. That must have happened when I was hammering it again. So I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and do that. because you can't, once something's in it, you can't do the round nose pliers. It's being stubborn. Okay, we have to try and make sure we don't misshape anything.
I'll get a hold of our realtor.
So when you put this link with the pearl on, you just need to make sure that you have it so it's facing forward and it doesn't flip when you put it on. So start with it upside down. There we go. There. Okay, so the next thing to do is measure, figure out what length you want for chain. I'm going to go 18-inch. And what I'm going to do is measure this, pull that apart. Okay, it's 4.5 inches. And so in metric, I'll quickly figure that out. 4.5 times 2.5, because there's 2.5 centimeters in an inch. So it's 11.25 centimeters. Okay. So that's 11.25 centimeters. So you would take that, well, yours is going to be different than mine. So you take whatever length of chain you want, have the clasp completed, and make it, so say you want 18-inch or whatever it is in centimeters, and you subtract this distance, and your completed chain would be whatever length you wanted, minus this distance, and then you cut it in half, so that you're cutting up the opposite end from the clasp. That's all it takes, and then add your chain onto this. So I'm going to get my chain prepared. I just had a thought. I think I want to oxidize this before I put the chain on, because the chain comes pre-oxidized and I don't want it to turn green. Sometimes they turn green. So I'm putting this into my fumes of ammonia, and I will pause the video. Okay, so I'm back and I have it all oxidized, and now I'm going to just take a nail buff and buff out highlights. So I find that fumes of ammonia does not affect my pearls. I've done it lots of times with pearls and I haven't had any impact. So that's a question that is always asked, will it affect my pearls? So far as I've noticed, it does not. Whereas the chemicals and liver of sulfur are said to affect the nacre on the pearls. So that's another bonus of using the fumes of ammonia. I think the biggest bonus of the fumes of ammonia is the minimal cost and the fact that it's at the ready. You get your container ready and then you just set them in and let time do its thing. And before you know it, it's done. And you get to use it like, oh, the batch I have right now. Oh, gee. It's got to be over 6 months old at least. So, and it costs pennies to make it. Well, once you have your container and your bowl and your stocking, because that's what I use. There. Okay, so I think it's ready. Well, quickly, actually, I like to buff the back too, so that it doesn't leave marks on somebody's throat. Although you could also seal it with some spray lacquer. There, done. Okay. How's that look? So I have my chain all ready. I made it and measured it. And I changed my mind. I put it to 20 inches as I was doing it. I'm going, a lot of my customers request 20 or actually larger sometimes. So I think this would look nice as a 20. Oh, my eyes aren't working today, I guess. Ah, there it is. There, and it is complete. Okay, so thank you for joining me in this tutorial. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like and comment. Please, please, please comment. It means so much to me. I appreciate it. And God bless, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.